Okay, everybody, good evening. Coming to you guys a little bit late because I wanted to let the Terrion Arnold video sit up a little bit longer. But the Seahawks did actually have a training camp session today, and it was the final training camp session that will be open to the public this year, which might mean that there isn't necessarily a lot that we're going to be able to learn from the remaining practices. I'm sure there will be something. It's not like nobody can watch the upcoming sessions, but with no public access, there's definitely going to be a little bit of a limit on the kind of information we can get. So definitely wanted to make sure I got this video out before the end of the day. So yeah, practice session. What did we get today? First, and the really cool thing was Curtis Allen was back. And he's, like I said, the guy who really gets into the play-by-play of training camps. So it was really good to have him back. So let's take a look at what happened. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks. So first, doing some just basic injury stuff. First, this was a full-length practice, unlike yesterday, but the team was in shells. So it was not a padded practice. It did not have a lot of contact. It was, for the most part, a low-key practice session. And there are a couple of little injuries starting to add up with this team, so I'm sure that it's part of the reason why you're seeing this. I don't know what the original plan was, but I would have assumed that a full-length practice that is also the final practice of public access would typically have been a little bit more high octane, but they're trying to ramp things down a little bit. And my understanding is they have a short practice tomorrow, so they definitely don't want to work it too hard before the first game. So injury stuff, let's lead off with the injury notes first. Jadarian Price was not out there. Remember, he was only out there yesterday because it was a walkthrough, so it does seem like he's still working through the issue a little bit. Would not expect to see him in the game on Saturday at this point, and that's unfortunate because he is one of the guys that you would really like to see what he can do. And Emmanuel Wilson was also not out there today, so we may end up seeing a lot of Velez Jones and Justin Jones and maybe even the guy we got from the Browns, TJ Harden, I think his name is. We might see a lot of those guys in the backfield on Saturday because right now the only healthy running back I think we have that is likely to make the team is Helani. And Helani's the guy, in theory, we don't really need to see that much because we did have him last year. Not that he doesn't need to play, but does kind of feel like we might be down to that, which is really disappointing because I really would have liked to have seen Wilson in the game if we can't see Price. So hoping maybe that clears up between now and then, but they did not practice today. Also not out there was Neil, so he is working his way back, and we did see him yesterday, but in the absence of the walkthrough, they decided to go ahead and give him the day off. Some guys are working out on a far field without their shells on, according to Curtis Allen, so some of those guys could have been doing very chill stuff on a secondary field. That's what it sounds like to me anyway, but still not all the way back, so not expecting to see any of those guys for the game on Saturday. Also not practicing today was Nicky Manwari and Derek Hall. So we are starting to see a couple of guys sitting out these practices that are pretty important. But again, it doesn't seem like any of the injuries are overly serious. Doesn't seem like anything that's going to actually cost them meaningful time. And a good chunk of the players are at the very least veterans, so they don't necessarily need the reps. But I'm worried about the rookies. The rookies are the guys that need reps. Also out there, although apparently only at partial strength, was Jake Bobo. So he's pretty much back at this point. Again, not really worried about that because he's a veteran, but looks like he's on his way back. All right, guys, let's take a quick break here to talk a little bit about Prize Picks, currently the #1 sports pick app in America. The app is very easy to use. Check it out to my left here. You can do player picks, where you just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Or you can pick teams, where you pick winners, spread, or total on any game or fight. The app is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Right now, they have a great offer. You can play your first $5 lineup and get $150 in lineups if you win. All you have to do is use code HMA when you sign up. It's a brand new offer, best time possible to get on the app. So get on over there and get to winning that first lineup. So remember, Prize Picks, code HMA. Download the app today, and remember to always gamble responsibly. So the only other injury-related note I saw was AJ Barner. And I know this sounds like a little bit of a platitude, but I did want to point this out. According to AJ Barner in a post practice conference, he feels healthier than he has since early in his college career. So if that is true, that is a really good sign because a couple people have talked about how Barner looked like he wasn't 100% earlier in camp, and it definitely looked like he was still on the way back from the surgery he had in the offseason and all the damage he took to his body during the season last year. So if he truly does feel healthier than he has since early in his college career, that's a really good sign. That means we shouldn't really have too much to worry about there. And it does kind of suggest that things have come along since last week when a couple people pointed out that they thought that he was still hampered. Okay, so now we're going to get to a little bit of play-by-play stuff from the practice, mostly from Curtis Allen, because he's the guy who really hits that stuff hard. So we're just going to start going through some assorted plays and notes that he took. Shaheed, Horton, and Cody White were taking punts in the warm-up, so we know about Shaheed, we know about Horton. Cody White, if he's the third string, quote-unquote, punt returner, you wonder if that maybe gives him the leg up on the sixth receiver spot right now, because that's the spot that's open. And he's got a lot of competition there. Guys like Emmanuel Henderson, guys like Irv Charles, guys like Montori Foster. So if Cody White is viewed as a punt returner, an emergency punt returner on top of it, that would probably kick things in his direction. Riley Mills drilling with the defensive line while Mike Morris, Jared Ivey, and Aiden Hubbard were drilling with special teams. I think the point of that is just to illustrate that they view Riley Mills as being a much more integral part of the defense than those three guys. It does highlight how happy they are with Mills and how much they do view him as playing significant snaps for the Seahawks defensively in 2026, which isn't really a surprise or anything like that, but Mills has been one of the highlights of camp so far. Some of the red zone stuff, we had Darnold trying to hit Kupp in the back corner of the end zone. Could not bring it in. Witherspoon in on the coverage. There were a couple of Witherspoon plays that caught my attention here. Witherspoon blitzing on Darnold. Darnold was just barely able to get the ball out, but Witherspoon was active today, and you see that he is going all out despite the contract stuff. So unlike some situations in the league right now, or some incipient situations in the league right now where things seem like they're going in a bad direction contract-wise, at the very least, even though I really wish we had gotten this deal done by now, and I really wish it gets done ASAP, Witherspoon's definitely approaching it with the right mentality. He's not going to let it bother him, and that's a really good thing. One recurring theme from today, and I know this has been a recurring theme during camp, Milroe, again, got good reviews during red zone. He hit Jake Bobo running a crossing route to the corner, and those are the kind of throws that we need Milroe to be able to hit, because we know he's got the physical talent, but can you hit a crossing route over the middle? So that was a good play by Milroe. I believe that there were a couple of others as well that we'll get to. Shaheed with a sideline catch over Pritchett. Pritchett, Spoon, and Ernest stopped to watch the replay. Don't know what that means, but take from it what you will. But Shaheed, it continues to build, right? Every time we get these play-by-plays, we get multiple reports of Shaheed ripping things up. And I saw a clip from, I think it was Greg Bell, of Shaheed catching an out route. He's ready for a big season. Velez Jones running back reps with 2. So this is what I was talking about. Other than Halani, who is probably the least interesting of the running backs that are on the team right now that are likely to make it. And that's not an insult to him. That's just the nature of the situation, where the other guys are either new, or they're rookies, or they're coming off major injury. Velez Jones is probably going to get a lot of action against the Cowboys on Saturday. Bud Clark was back with the 2s, apparently. So even though he's doing well, and I've heard a lot of good things about Bud Clark, it does seem like this team is relatively committed to Ty Okada being the starter for the moment, which I think is the right thing to do, but worth keeping an eye on there. DeAnthony Bell still with the 3s. So at this point, I don't know exactly where we see him fitting in on the roster, but it seems like he's going to end up being on the depth chart at least as a safety, and Bud Clark might be the nickel corner behind Eamon Wari. That would be my best guess. I thought maybe those would be flipped, but it seems like that we are leaning in that direction right now. Milroe, here's another good play here. Nothing special, but finds Velez on a dump off. So it felt like Milroe had a lot of good plays today, according to what I was reading and what I was hearing. So good things going on there, and all this stuff, hopefully it pays off on Saturday. And if it pays off over the next couple of weeks here, then we've got something. And maybe that something is just a trade chip for near the deadline or next season. But if we get good play from Milroe over the next few weeks, then we'll have something of value. And that's all you can ask for right now, because we don't need him to play. We also had some more Darnold stuff, and that was another recurring theme that I've seen through most of camp, but especially today. Darnold looks way better right now than he did at this time last season. Hitting Horton on a sideline pass over the shoulder, finding JSN, splitting the zone. And look, a big reason why Darnold did not look great in the training camp last season was because he was new and he was still working his way up. I would never sit here and say that Darnold's going to be an MVP this year if you do correlation and you take a look at how he played last year compared to how he played this year in camp. But I do think he's going to have a better year, and I think it may end up being the best year of his career. And I don't know if the stats will necessarily show that, but I think we're going to come out of this year feeling really good about where we are with him. Pat O'Connell made another play in coverage, which, he's not the most athletic fourth linebacker we have available to us on this team. So the fact that he's constantly making plays in coverage is a good sign and a good indication that he might be able to stick on this team despite all the stuff they have going on with Chaz Surratt and maybe one or two other guys. Another great Milroe throw here that I want to highlight from Curtis here. Through a seam route to Barner, layered. That is exactly the kind of throw we need Milroe to hit to be worth something. So at the very least, it feels like we've gotten everything we needed from him in camp. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be able to parlay that into something of value when the season starts. But if it carries over into the preseason, you've got options. You can trade him later. You can plan to start him later. You can trade Drew Lock and trust that Milroe's good enough as a backup. There are things that you can do if he keeps this up. And he's got 3 games, and I think he's going to play a lot in all 3. At the very least, he's going to play a lot in 2. So really encouraging to see stuff like this. But again, they're in shells, so we got to see it in an actual game. Witherspoon had a pick today, so that's always exciting because as much as Witherspoon has been one of the best players at his position over the last 3 years, interceptions have not been his forte, so good to see a little bit of that. And look, that the only thing Witherspoon needs to do to start getting that national credibility and people to really respect him is to start bringing in more interceptions. So if he can get even like 4 this season, it would completely change the way people perceive him. Another Milroe play here, evades stuff in the pocket, finds Ricky White on the sideline. Ricky White's another guy we've heard some pretty good things about in camp so far, by the way, so that continues on. But yeah, that's really about it that I saw. I saw the rookies were doing push-ups and sit-ups or something right as practice was wrapping up. I think Darnold and Zabel were doing autographs for fans, and that basically takes us home. So today was the last day of public access. If I hear things from future training camp sessions, I'll pass it along, but that wraps us up. So now we're just going to get to that first game in a couple days, and I'm excited. I think we're all excited. But yeah, that was the end of that. So training camp enters a new phase. Not going to be as transparent, but we do have Hard Knocks, right? Hard Knocks is going to give us more access than we typically get. So let me know what you guys think. See you guys later. Go Hawks. And yeah, let's keep it rolling, people. Let's keep it rolling. And let's see some good things on Saturday. All right. Go Hawks.